The Brown family empire is about to implode in the most spectacular way possible. Word on the street is that 13 of Kody Brown's estranged children are in serious talks about joining forces for a massive, no-holds-barred tell-all project. And when we say tell-all, we're not talking about some sanitized, carefully edited reality TV confessional. We're talking about the kind of expose that could shatter what's left of Kody's carefully constructed public image into a million pieces. This isn't just one disgruntled kid venting on social media anymore. This is a coordinated effort, a united front. 13 voices, all ready to speak their truth about what it was really like growing up in the Brown household. 13 perspectives on favoritism, neglect, broken promises, and years of emotional damage that no amount of TLC editing could hide. Sources suggest the conversation started quietly after Garrison's death, when the siblings came together in grief and realized they'd all been living parallel experiences of abandonment and disappointment. But things kicked into overdrive after Kody's recent media blitz, particularly that Vile Files podcast interview, where he had the audacity to claim he was the one reaching out, the one making effort, the one being rejected by ungrateful children. Leon's explosive Instagram response calling their father a liar and a joke wasn't just a momentary outburst, it was a dam breaking. And now insiders claim the floodgates are about to open wide. Think about what these kids know. They didn't just watch Sister Wives on TV like the rest of us. They lived it. They saw what happened when the cameras stopped rolling. They heard the conversations that never made it to air. They experienced the favoritism, the broken commitments, the hollow apologies followed by blame and excuses. They witnessed the financial decisions, the property disputes, the way their father's priorities shifted so dramatically when Robin entered the picture. And they're done protecting him. For years, most of Kody's children chose privacy over publicity. They could have cashed in on their family's fame at any time, but they took the high road. They stayed quiet even when their father publicly blamed them for broken relationships. They bit their tongues while he played victim on national television. They maintained boundaries and tried to heal privately. But Kody crossed a line. He didn't just fail to reach out to his kids. He actively lied about it in multiple interviews, knowing full well that children like Leon hadn't heard from him since their brother's funeral. He crafted a narrative where he was the devoted father being cruelly rejected, and he banked on his kids staying silent because that's what they'd always done. He miscalculated badly. Now, according to reports circulating in Sister Wives circles, those 13 estranged children are exploring their options. They're talking to each other, they're comparing notes, they're considering platforms, and Kody Brown should be absolutely terrified because the truth is about to come out. But that was only the beginning of this unraveling disaster. So what finally pushed these kids from silent suffering to potential public reckoning? The answer is simple. Kody couldn't keep his mouth shut. For months now, Kody's been on what can only be described as a desperate redemption tour. After his humiliating stint on Special Forces, where he had a complete emotional breakdown on national television, he's been hitting every podcast and interview opportunity he can find. And in every single one, he's been spinning the same tired narrative. Poor Kody, victimized Kody, the father who tried so hard but was rejected by his cruel, ungrateful children. The Vile Files podcast was supposed to be his chance to control the story. He sat there with Nick and Natalie playing the wounded father card for all it was worth. He claimed he was constantly reaching out to his kids. He insisted he was doing the work. He painted himself as the parent who just wanted reconciliation but kept hitting brick walls. And his children watched it happen in real time. Leon Brown, who'd maintained radio silence on social media for months, couldn't stomach it anymore. They broke their hiatus to post a statement so scathing, so brutally honest, that it sent shockwaves through the entire Sister Wives community. Leon didn't just say their father was wrong. They called him a liar. They exposed that they hadn't heard from Kody since Garrison's death. They revealed that Kody had blown them off at their brother's funeral. They called him a joke of a father. That post wasn't just about Leon venting frustration, it was a breaking point. And it resonated immediately with their siblings. Audrey, Leon's spouse, jumped into the comments on the Vile Files Instagram reel to back up Leon's claims, stating that what Kody said was verifiably untrue. Paydon had already confirmed months earlier that he also hadn't spoken to his father since Garrison's funeral. Gwendolyn has been openly discussing her father's failures on her YouTube channel for years. Mykelti, once considered a peacemaker who tried to defend her dad, has now drawn a hard line, telling Kody she won't have a relationship with him until he repairs things with all her siblings. The pattern became impossible to ignore. These weren't isolated incidents or misunderstandings. This was systemic. This was years of neglect, favoritism, and emotional manipulation that Kody was now trying to rewrite with lies on a public platform. And that's when the conversations allegedly started. If he's going to lie about us publicly, why are we protecting him privately? If he's going to use his platform to paint himself as the victim, why can't we use our voices to tell the truth? The kids started talking to each other more seriously, comparing notes, sharing experiences, realizing that what they'd each experienced individually was part of a much larger, more damning pattern of behavior. Kody thought his media tour would rehabilitate his image. Instead, he lit the fuse on a bomb that's been waiting to explode for years, and now there's no putting that fuse out. The question isn't if his kids will speak out anymore, it's when and how devastating the fallout will be. Let's talk about the math here, because the numbers alone tell a devastating story. Kody Brown has 18 children, 18, and 13 of them reportedly want absolutely nothing to do with him. That's not a couple of rebellious kids going through a phase. That's over 70% of his children rejecting him as a father. Think about what that means. Imagine having 18 kids and losing contact with 13 of them. That's not bad luck. That's not miscommunication. That's a pattern of failure so profound, so consistent that it can't be explained away by anything except Kody's own actions. So who are these 13 estranged children? From Christine's side, we've got Aspen, Mykelti, Paydon, Gwendolyn, Isabel, and Truly. Paydon, Gwendolyn, Isabel, and Truly, that's all 6 of Christine's kids who want nothing to do with their father or have publicly criticized him. Janelle's children aren't faring much better for Kody. Logan, Madison, Hunter, Garrison before his death, Gabriel, and Savannah have all either gone no contact or expressed serious issues with their father. And then there's Leon, Mary's only child, who just publicly called Kody a liar and a joke of a father. That leaves exactly 5 children that Kody claims to have any relationship with, and here's where it gets really interesting. 3 of those 5 aren't even his biological children. They're Robyn's kids from her first marriage, Dayton, Aurora, and Brianna, who Kody adopted. The only 2 biological children still in his life? Ariella and Solomon, his youngest kids with Robyn, who are still minors living in his home. Let that sink in. The only biological children who have a relationship with Kody are the ones who literally have no choice because they're underage and living under his roof. Every single one of his adult biological children, except for those he adopted specifically to create a new family unit with Robyn, have walked away. And Kody's response to this staggering rejection? He claims he has a great relationship with 3 daughters. He's talking about Ariella, Aurora, and Brianna, the kids who live in his house, the kids who are either minors or were adopted specifically to replace the family he was actively abandoning. Meanwhile, he ignores the existence of Truly, his biological daughter in Utah, who was 10 years old when everything fell apart. He dismisses Savannah, who was still in high school when he stopped showing up. He pretends that his minor children with Christine and Janelle don't count in this equation because, according to his twisted logic on that podcast, almost all his children were adults when the divorces happened. But they weren't. And even if they were, that doesn't excuse abandoning them. The numbers don't lie. 13 out of 18 children have rejected their father, and those 13 children are now talking about telling their side of the story together. As a united force, with receipts, with memories, with years of pain that Kody can't explain away with his victim narrative. This isn't a few disgruntled kids anymore. This is a mass exodus. And the reasons why are about to become very, very public. Here's what should absolutely terrify Kody Brown. These 13 kids don't just have feelings and opinions, they have information. They have knowledge. They lived inside the Brown family machine for years, and they saw everything that the cameras didn't catch. And if they decide to go public with a coordinated tell-all, the secrets they could expose would be absolutely devastating. Let's start with the money. For years, fans have questioned how the finances actually worked in this family. Kody claimed on that Vile Files podcast that all his wives made more money than him, which is why he didn't pay alimony. But is that actually true? His kids would know. They saw who paid for what. They know whether their mothers struggled financially while Robyn's household seemed flush with cash. They witnessed the property deals, the moves, the decisions about who got what resources. If there's financial misconduct or inequality, they have the receipts. Then there's Coyote Pass, that massive property investment abandonment that turned into a complete disaster. Kody bought this land with big promises about building a family compound where everyone would live together. Instead, it became a symbol of broken dreams and wasted money. The kids would know the real story behind those property decisions. They'd know who pushed for what, how the money was divided, why the builds never happened, and what really went down when it all fell apart. But the financial drama is just the tip of the iceberg. These kids could expose the favoritism in excruciating detail. Not just feelings about being ignored, but specific examples. Birthday parties. Kody missed for some kids, but never missed for Robin's children. School events he skipped. Medical emergencies where he didn't show up. Times when he chose Robin's family over everyone else, over and over and over again. They could talk about Isabel's surgery when she begged her father to be there for her scoliosis operation and he refused, citing COVID protocols while living exclusively with Robin's family. They could discuss Truly's kidney failure when she nearly died and Kody wasn't the parent managing that crisis. They could reveal every broken promise, every canceled visit, every time he chose convenience over commitment. And then there's Robin's role in all of this. Sources have long suggested that Robin had more influence over Kody's decisions than anyone wants to admit. The kids could expose those dynamics. They could talk about how things changed when Robin entered the picture. They could discuss the rules that applied to some families but not others. They could reveal conversations and incidents that the show never captured. There's also the question of how TLC money was distributed. Did all the kids benefit equally from being on that show, or did some households get more than others? The children would know exactly how that worked. And if there was inequality, that's information the public would be fascinated to hear. These kids hold the keys to every skeleton in Kody Brown's closet, and if they decide to open those closets together in one coordinated tell-all project, there's nowhere for Kody to hide. If there's one single event that transformed these children from quietly estranged to potentially ready to go public, it's the tragedy of losing their brother Garrison. His death didn't just devastate the family, it exposed the depths of Kody's failures in a way that could no longer be ignored or explained away. Garrison Brown took his own life in March of 2024, and the loss shattered his siblings. But what happened in the aftermath, particularly at Garrison's funeral, seems to have become a defining moment that unified the estranged children in their anger and disappointment toward their father. Leon's Instagram post was crystal clear about what happened. They stated explicitly that Kody blatantly blew them off at Garrison's funeral. This wasn't a case of missing each other in a crowd or a misunderstanding. According to Leon, it was deliberate. At a moment when the family was gathering to mourn one of their own, when siblings needed their father to show up and be present, Kody apparently couldn't even manage basic human decency toward some of his children. Paydon has also confirmed that he hasn't spoken to his father since the funeral, and he's hinted that something significant happened at that memorial service. He won't give specifics, but he's made it clear that whatever went down did not go the way it could have gone. The implication is that Kody had an opportunity to start healing relationships during this tragedy, and he failed spectacularly. Think about what that means. Your brother dies, your family is in crisis, everyone is grieving, and your father, the person who's supposed to be the patriarch holding everyone together, can't even acknowledge some of his own children. He picks and chooses who gets his attention, even at a funeral. That's not just neglect, that's cruelty. For years, these kids had been dealing with their father's favoritism and absence in their individual lives, but Garrison's death brought them all together physically in one place. They saw how Kody treated each of them. They witnessed his priorities in real time. They compared notes about who he spoke to, who he ignored, who he comforted, and who he dismissed. And what they realized was that even in the face of unimaginable tragedy, even when burying one of his own sons, Kody Brown couldn't put aside his ego and his preferences long enough to be a father to all his children. That funeral became a unifying moment. The siblings who'd been privately dealing with their own versions of rejection suddenly understood that they were all experiencing the same abandonment. They weren't the problem, he was. Garrison's death was a tragedy, but the way Kody handled it, the way he treated his children during the worst moment of their lives, that's become the catalyst for what's happening now. These kids aren't just angry about the past anymore, they're angry about how their father behaved when it mattered most. And that anger is turning into action. One of the most significant developments in this entire situation is watching Kody Brown transform from peacemaker to boundary setter. For years, she was seen as one of the kids who defended Kody, who tried to maintain relationships across the fractured family, who genuinely wanted to bridge the divides. But that version of Kody is gone, and her evolution tells us everything we need to know about how serious this situation has become. Kody used to be the daughter who showed up for family events even when tensions were high. She maintained contact with Robin when other siblings wouldn't. She tried to see multiple perspectives and encouraged encourage reconciliation. Fans often criticized her for being too willing to excuse her father's behavior or give him the benefit of the doubt. Not anymore. According to her own statements on Patreon, Mykelti has now explicitly identified Kody as the common denominator in all the family's dysfunction. She's pointed out that when one person has problems with this many people, it's probably not everyone else who's the issue. It's that one person. And she's done trying to pretend otherwise. But here's what makes Mykelti's shift so powerful for this potential tell-all situation. She hasn't just walked away quietly. She's drawn a line in the sand that directly challenges everything Kody claims about reaching out and wanting relationships with his kids. Mykelti has told her father that she will not have a one-on-one relationship with him until he repairs things with all of her siblings. Not some of them, all of them. As she put it, you can't just have me, you have to have all of us. That's not a daughter giving up on her father. That's a daughter saying the terms of engagement have completely changed. She's refusing to be the exception. The one kid Kody can point to and say, "See, I have good relationships with some of my children." She's forcing him to acknowledge that his picking and choosing favorites isn't acceptable anymore. And she's doing it publicly through her Patreon, where she's been increasingly candid about her father's lack of real accountability. She's called out his pattern of offering apologies that are immediately followed by blaming someone else. She's explained that what the children need is simple, a genuine, unconditional "I'm sorry," with no caveats, no excuses, no shifting responsibility. Mykelti's transformation matters because she was one of the kids Kody probably thought he could count on. She was his safety net, proof that not all his children hated him. But now she's standing with her siblings in solidarity, essentially telling her father that his fragmented approach to parenting won't work anymore. If someone like Mykelti, who genuinely tried to maintain peace, is now drawing these kinds of hard boundaries and speaking publicly about her father's failures, what does that tell us about how the other, more estranged siblings feel? What does it suggest about their willingness to stay quiet? The peacemakers are done peacemaking, and when the mediators become critics, you know the situation is beyond repair. This united front among the siblings isn't just talk, it's real. And it's strong. Here's where things could get really messy for Kody Brown. A tell-all from 13 of his children wouldn't just be embarrassing, it could potentially expose legal and financial issues that have serious consequences. And that's probably what's keeping Kody up at night right now. Let's start with the child support question. Kody was never legally married to Christine or Janelle, which means the normal legal framework for divorce and child support didn't apply when those relationships ended. But that doesn't mean he had no financial obligations to his children. And fans have been wondering for years whether Kody actually contributed fairly to supporting all his kids, or whether some families got more than others. If these kids go public with specific details about financial support or lack thereof, it could open up a whole can of worms. Did Kody contribute equally to all his children's needs? Or were Christine and Janelle largely supporting their own kids while Robyn's household enjoyed a higher standard of living? The children would know exactly what the financial reality looked like in their individual homes. Then there's the TLC money. Sister Wives has been on the air for nearly 15 years. That show generated significant income, and all those children appeared on camera. Questions have swirled for years about how that money was distributed. Were the kids compensated? Did all the families benefit equally? Or did the financial arrangements favor certain households over others? A coordinated tell-all could expose exactly how the Sister Wives money flowed, if there was inequality, if some kids benefited more than others despite all of them being on the show. That's information that could be legally relevant and would definitely be publicly damaging. There's also Coyote Pass to consider. Kody and his wives invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into that property with big plans that never materialized. Now that the family has fractured, questions remain about how that property will be divided and whether financial losses were distributed fairly. The kids witnessed those property decisions firsthand. They know who paid what, who owns what, and who got left holding the bag when it all fell apart. And let's not forget Kody's claim on the Vile Files podcast that all his wives made more money than him, which is why he didn't pay alimony. Is that actually true? Or is that another lie he told to make himself look better? His children would know the real financial situation. They lived it. Beyond just embarrassment, a tell-all that exposes financial misconduct or inequality could have real legal ramifications. It could potentially open Kody up to lawsuits from his ex-wives if it turns out he misrepresented financial situations. It could affect affect property settlements that are still being worked out. It could even impact his relationship with TLC if it comes out that financial arrangements weren't handled appropriately. The children aren't just sitting on emotional truths about their father. They're sitting on financial information that could unravel everything. And if they decide to share that information publicly with receipts and specifics, Kody's problems go way beyond just a damaged reputation. If Kody should be terrified of this potential tell-all, Robin Brown should be absolutely petrified. Because while Kody has spent years publicly embarrassing himself and damaging his own reputation, Robin has carefully maintained an image of being the innocent bystander caught in family drama that wasn't her fault. A coordinated tell-all from 13 angry, informed adult children could destroy that carefully crafted narrative completely. For years, Robin has positioned herself as the wife who wanted the family to stay together, who encouraged Kody to work on his relationships, who had no role in the fracturing of the Brown family. She's played the victim card beautifully, suggesting that she's been unfairly blamed for problems that existed long before she arrived, but the children know better, and they're ready to talk about it. These kids could expose the preferential treatment Robin's household received in excruciating detail. They witnessed it firsthand. They saw how COVID rules applied differently to Robin's family than to everyone else. They noticed how their father spent the vast majority of his time at Robin's house while their own mothers struggled to get him to show up for even basic parenting duties. They watched resources flow disproportionately toward one household while others made do with less. But it goes deeper than just favoritism. Insiders have long suggested that Robin had significant influence over Kody's decisions, perhaps more than anyone wants to publicly admit. The children could reveal specific instances where Robin inserted herself into family dynamics, where she influenced their father's choices, where her preferences became the deciding factor in decisions that affected everyone. Remember that infamous moment when Kody told Isabel he couldn't leave his family to be with her during major surgery? He was talking about Robin's family. The implication was crystal clear. He couldn't leave Robin and her kids, even though Isabel, his own daughter, desperately needed him. The children remember moments like that, and they could share dozens more examples that never made it to television. There's also the question of how Robin spoke about the other wives and their children when cameras weren't rolling. Did she badmouth Christine, Janelle, and Mary? Did she say negative things about their kids? Did she actively work to distance Kody from his other families? The children would have heard things, seen things, picked up on dynamics that the edited show never revealed. And then there's the Victoria's Secret incident, the purity speech, the constant crying, the manipulation tactics that fans have criticized for years. Robin has dismissed those criticisms as unfair editing or misunderstandings, but if the children come forward with their own observations about Robin's behavior, about how she treated them versus how she treated her own kids, about the double standards and the manipulation they witnessed personally, that's not editing. That's eyewitness testimony from people who lived it. Robin's entire public persona is built on the idea that she's been unfairly villainized. A tell-all from the children could prove that the villainization was actually completely justified. And once that facade cracks, there's no putting it back together. Let's talk about why this potential tell-all has serious legs and why publishers, streaming services, and media platforms should be lining up to make it happen. Because family tell-alls exposing reality TV dynasties have proven to be absolute gold mines, both culturally and financially. Look at what happened with the Duggar family. When Jill Duggar and her husband Derek Dillard started speaking out about the toxic dynamics in that family, about financial exploitation and control, the public ate it up. Jill eventually wrote a book detailing her experiences, and it became a massive conversation starter about reality TV families and the damage done behind the scenes. The revelations about how Jim Bob controlled finances, how family members were manipulated, how the perfect Christian family image was a facade. It changed how people viewed the entire Duggars empire, or consider the Plath family from Welcome to Plathville. When the older Plath children started opening up about their upbringing, about the control and manipulation, about the reality versus the image their parents projected, it created a whole new narrative around that show. The children's perspectives became more compelling than the parents' carefully managed storylines. The sister wives situation has even more explosive potential because we're not talking about one or two kids speaking out. We're talking about 13. 13 different perspectives, 13 sets of experiences, 13 voices, all telling variations of the same story about neglect, favoritism, and broken promises. That's not a disgruntled outlier. That's a pattern that's impossible to dismiss. And the platforms that could host this tell-all, they're endless. A traditional book deal would make sense, possibly with contributions from multiple siblings, each writing their own chapters. Publishers love multi-perspective family exposes, especially when there's an existing audience from a popular reality show. The Sister Wives fan base is massive and deeply invested in these family dynamics. But streaming platforms might be even more interested. Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, they've all shown appetite for documentary series that expose reality TV families. Imagine a multi-episode documentary where each child tells their story, where we see interviews, home videos, text messages, all the evidence that contradicts Kody's victim narrative. That's the kind of content that generates headlines, social media buzz, and serious viewership numbers. Podcasts are another option. Several of the kids, like Gwendolyn, already have their own platforms where they've been speaking candidly. A coordinated podcast series featuring multiple siblings could reach millions of listeners and generate ongoing conversation as each episode drops. Social media itself could be the platform, a coordinated campaign where all 13 kids post their stories simultaneously, tag each other, support each other's statements. That would break the internet, it would trend for days, and it wouldn't cost a dime. The precedent is clear. When reality TV kids grow up and start telling their real stories, people listen. And when those stories expose exploitation, favoritism, and abuse, they become cultural moments that transcend typical celebrity gossip. This isn't just tea, this is a reckoning. Let's step back and look at the bigger picture here, because what we're witnessing is nothing short of the complete and total collapse of Kody Brown's carefully constructed empire. And a coordinated tell-all from his children would be the final nail in a coffin that's already being sealed. For nearly 15 years, Kody controlled the narrative. He had the platform. He decided what got shown on Sister Wives and what stayed private. He crafted an image of himself as a charismatic patriarch managing a complex but loving family. Sure, there were conflicts and drama, but that was the point. The show needed tension to stay interesting. Kody could always fall back on the idea that editing made things look worse than they were, or that viewers didn't understand the full context. But that control is gone now. Completely gone. His wives left him one by one, and they've been increasingly candid about why. Christine walked away and didn't look back. Janelle set boundaries and refused to tolerate his nonsense anymore. Even Mary, who hung on for years hoping things would change, finally accepted that Kody had no interest in a real relationship with her. The wives exposed his failures from their perspectives, and the public overwhelmingly sided with them. Now his children are following suit, and their testimony is even more damaging because these are people he was supposed to protect and nurture. These are the kids he chose to bring into the world, who had no choice about being on television, who trusted him to be a father, and watched him prioritize his favorite family over and over again. Kody's recent media tour was supposed to be his comeback. He was going to show vulnerability on special forces, demonstrate growth, and rehabilitate his image as a father who's trying his best in a difficult situation. Instead, he lied. He claimed he was reaching out when he wasn't. He blamed his children for requiring two-way effort while ignoring that he'd abandoned some of them completely. He made himself look worse, and now he's facing consequences he can't control. He can't edit his children's statements. He can't manage their social media posts. He can't stop them from writing books or doing interviews or creating content that exposes who he really is. His power to shape the narrative is gone. A tell-all from 13 of his children would cement his legacy, not as the patriarch of an unconventional but loving family, but as a man who failed spectacularly at the one job that mattered most, being a father. It would expose that the preferential treatment everyone suspected was real. It would reveal the financial manipulations, the broken promises, the emotional damage done behind the scenes. Kody Brown's empire is crumbling. His family has fractured beyond repair. His reputation is in shambles. And his children, the ones who know him best, are ready to tell the world exactly why. He wanted control, he wanted the narrative, he wanted public sympathy. Instead, he's about to get the truth. And the truth, as they say, has a way of destroying carefully built lies. Kody's reckoning is coming, and it's coming from the people who matter most, his own children. Drop your thoughts below. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned. The next video is waiting, and you won't want to miss what's coming next.